Hello and welcome back to another FPL captaincy video where we go over all the essential stats that you're going to need to pick the best possible captaincy for the upcoming game week. If you do enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more FPL content and of course these captaincy videos every single week. Last week, game week 31, Isak was our captain and he unfortunately did blank with only a 2-pointer, which does give us only our 8th blank of the season, which is still a pretty decent return for that. And of course, when it was picking captaincies last week, I think all 4 of the main picks did blank, so there was really no hope for us last week no matter who we chose. Obviously Salah blanked as well, Saka was on the bench, and I think Palmer blanked as well, so really a lot of our main captaincy options didn't do too well last week, so we never really had much of a shot. But we have a new game week. It is a double game week this week, so we are very catered towards that for our captaincy choices, so let's go take a look at them. So we've got 3 players with double game weeks in here this week, as well as Mohamed Salah, who does still have a very favourable fixture against West Ham. Now, chances are you probably aren't going to captain Mo Salah, but it's good to at least put him up against the players with the double game weeks just to see how it does compare, even if, you know, he probably isn't going to be your captaincy option. But this week we have Alexander Isak, of course, and the 2 Crystal Palace players I went for is Mateta, for obvious reasons, being the main striker, and I went for Ismaila Sarr as well. I've picked Sarr over Eze because his underlying stats and his form has been a lot better in recent game weeks. Obviously Eze has kind of came into it a little bit more, picking up I believe 2 assists in game week 31, but I think overall Sarr is going to be the more popular player and you know, more likelihood of being captained more than Eze is, so I've decided to go for that. Of course Mateta and Isak for obvious reasons as well, being the main strikers for their teams. Now straight off the bat, obviously Isak is looking a lot more favourable, one with the better fixtures. Man United and Palace is obviously a lot better than City and Newcastle, but also the fact that both of Isak's games are going to be home fixtures, obviously a big boost there, whereas Crystal Palace are both playing away from home in both of their matches. If you want to consider Salah in this, he is also playing at home, so again a really nice fixture for him. As far as predicted points go, obviously as it is a double game week, everyone is looking quite high on the predicted points margin, but it is Alexander Isak on both websites who is at the top. He has 13.6, which is over 3 expected points more than anyone else on this table. We've got Isak as well on FPL team with 11.8, which again is 1.6 more than the next highest, which is Mateta's score on Fantasy Football Hub. Something to keep in mind as well with Salah, he's sitting at 8.5, so still a really high score. He is on FPL team still above Mateta and Sarr, even though they have a double game week, so that's something to obviously consider. Fantasy Football Hub does have them scoring a lot more than that, however there is a little bit of a difference there with Sarr at 9.4 and Mateta at 10.2, but it is Alexander Isak who is leading the way for both of our sites. For expected minutes, of course, with the double game week, we have a max of 180 minutes. With Salah, obviously having one game, he is expected to play 90. However, with their other 3 players, we have 166 for Alexander Isak, so obviously he is prone to an early substitution, so he is only expected to miss 14 minutes of the over the 2 games. So you're talking about an 83 minutes average per match, which is still more than respectable for a captaincy option. For Mateta, he's expected to play the full 90 in both games, of course with Nketiah being sent off. It really does lock in minutes for Mateta, so as a captaincy option, still a really nice pick. And then we've got Sarr as well, who is only expected to miss 4 minutes over the double game week. So again, Isak a little bit lower than the rest, but you know, still very respectable minutes with 83 in there. I would be expecting him to be subbed at some point, but I still think, you know, with the home fixtures and the good fixtures, he's still going to be a really nice pick. Obviously, when it comes to underlying stats, of course, Salah is at the top for expected goals and expected assists, but if you wanted to compare the 2 double game week strikers, Isak is 5 expected goals ahead of Mateta, and he has got a little bit more expected assists as well. For the return chances, however, obviously, having the double game week is going to give them a big boost, so an 89% chance of picking up at least 1 return in his 2 matches is what you get from Alexander Isak this week. Now again, Mohamed Salah only has 1 game week, he's still given a 71% chance of returning, so he's equaling Mateta and out return chancing percentage wise, Ismaila Sarr. So still a really good captaincy pick is Mohamed Salah, and definitely not one to overlook just because he doesn't have a double game week. Again, you know, if you want to be smart about it, the double game week captaincy is still the best option, but it just shows you how good a fixture and how good Mohamed Salah could be for you in game week 32. More on Mohamed Salah, he's also got the highest goal odds this week with a 50% chance, which is still a very high chance, as we have seen throughout the course of the season, of picking up 1 or more goals. He's given an 18% chance of scoring 2 or more as well, and West Ham have the lowest chance of a clean sheet this week. Now, with the double game weeks, obviously the Newcastle and Palace game, which does give us the double game week next Wednesday, is still, you know, almost a week away, so unfortunately the odds aren't out yet for those games. So the odds that you're seeing on screen right now for Isak, Mateta and Sarr are for their first match at the weekend. So Isak against Man United, given a 50% chance of scoring, and then you've got Mateta and Sarr against Manchester City, given a 28 and 20% chance of scoring. Now obviously Isak is absolutely, like, literally matching Salah. Same chance of scoring against Man United as Salah does against West Ham. So if you wanted to compare the both, obviously you do have that extra game out of Alexander Isak, which is going to make him a much nicer captaincy option, because whatever you get from that Man United game, you can obviously add on the Crystal Palace game. Now with Mateta and Sarr, they're obviously not looking like great options at the minute because we're just looking at this Manchester City fixture. Obviously a couple of days down the line we'll get the odds out for the Newcastle game and they will look a lot better, again potentially better than a Mohamed Salah, but unfortunately right now that's just not available. But both of them, Mateta still given a 5% chance at scoring 2 or more, so very low chances of braces from either Mateta or Ismaila Sarr. I would imagine that Newcastle game is going to be a little bit better for them, with City being, you know, a lot more defensively solid in recent weeks. Now this is where we start to dive a little bit deeper. Now of course we do like to pick penalty takers, we say this every single week for our captaincies, and Ismaila Sarr is the only one here who is not on the penalties. Of course when you pick 2 players from the same team, it's going to be, you know, impossible to pick the, you know, both penalty takers because there is only going to be one, and it is of course going to be Mateta. Now this is where someone like Eze would have an advantage over Sarr. Eze takes the free kicks and Eze also takes the corners. So again, you know, picking a captaincy, you're wanting someone who's going to be on set pieces, more specifically penalties, which you do get from, you know, our other 3 options. So personally, I think it does totally rule Sarr out. You know, he's not really been anywhere near the other players when it comes to odds and everything like that. Obviously not taking penalties either is going to be a big downfall. So we are really just looking at our top 3 at this moment in time, where of course they are the, you know, designated penalty takers for their teams. As far as rest goes, none of our 4 players do have European football at the minute, so we are looking at a full rest since game week 31 until they play again. Now, a couple players playing on Saturday, a couple playing on Sunday. Salah is playing on Sunday, so he's getting that extra day there. The same with Alexander Isak, also playing on Sunday. They're playing the late kick-off as well, the 4:30 kick-off on Sunday afternoon. Mateta and Sarr both playing against Man City on the Saturday. Now, this is going to be more useful when it comes to their second match because they're going to get 3 days rest, whereas Alexander Isak is only going to get 2 days rest before their match on Wednesday. So again, Isak, someone who is prone to a substitution, obviously with Callum Wilson available on the bench, is, you know, with that extra day, you know, with that one less day than your Crystal Palace players, is there going to be a chance that he gets subbed early against one of Palace or Manchester United? That is the kind of thing that you are going to have to consider. So again, looking at Mateta, for example, that is where he does take the advantage here. Mohamed Salah, of course, you don't have to worry about that. He only has 1 match, so he's going to have that full week, and then another full week. Again, explains why his expected minutes are sitting at 90 at the minute. Obviously, with someone like Mateta, with the Nketiah red card, he's going to play 90, he's going to get 3 days rest, and then he's going to play 90 again against Newcastle. So if you like, you know, these wee little things, Mateta is looking like a really nice option. Of course, the numbers and the stats and stuff are really back in Isak. However, the fixtures, the home fixture, Isak is going to be looking like the front runner. But if you like to look into the in-depth stuff, rest, extra days and minutes, Mateta is looking like a really nice option. Now it's looking a lot more cluttered at this stage. This graphic, of course, normally only has 4 teams, but with the double game week, it's a lot more confusing. So I'm going to try and go through it as easily as possible. Mohamed Salah has the easiest defence of our 4 picks this week. They're playing against the 5th worst defence in the league, which is West Ham United, and they are 5th worst for expected goals conceded at 48.2. They've also conceded the most goals out of all the teams here with 52 goals conceded as well. Now, when you look at the chances conceded, you know, West Ham, again, being one of the worst defences, have so many chances conceded down the middle, but they also have a ton of chances conceded down that right-hand side. 117 from the right wing, and again, you can see how much that is just by comparing it to the rest of them. For example, Man City have conceded about half the amount of chances that West Ham have down that same side. Similar with Newcastle. Even United and Palace, 74 and 86 chances down the right-hand side. You know, you're talking a big amount of a gap between them and West Ham United. So I definitely would not be underestimating Mohamed Salah as a captaincy pick this week. Again, he's going to be a huge differential as well, because he doesn't have that single game week. So, you know, if Salah scores 2 and gets an assist, you're still talking about 20 points, which could easily match one of Isak or Mateta if you're looking at them for a captaincy option. Still, personally, wouldn't do it myself. I don't think it is the optimal route, but you know, it is definitely a really nice differential option if maybe you're trying to catch someone in your mini league and you think it's obvious that they're going to go for a double game week player. This could be a really nice week to go for Mohamed Salah. Now, with the rest of them, again, we can look at Ismaila Sarr first down the bottom, obviously playing as a right winger. It's not really looking too great for him, you know, playing against City and Newcastle, both with strong right sides, 62 and 73 chances down that side. We have already ruled him out as a captaincy option, and I think that just kind of solidifies it a little bit more. When it comes to Isak versus Mateta, very similar, to be fair. You know, Isak's up against the 7th worst defence in Man United, but then a pretty strong defence in Crystal Palace. Mateta is up against 2 pretty decent defences in Man City and Newcastle, who are 14th and 17th for expected goals conceded. But when it comes to chances conceded down the middle, that's where it is very close. You can see with Isak for Man United, 160 down the middle. For Crystal Palace, it's 164 down the middle. Very similar to the teams that Mateta's up against as well, despite them being considered a little bit better defensively. 158 down the middle for Man City and 177, which is the most between, you know, him and Isak's games up against Newcastle. So it's still looking pretty close when it comes to chances conceded. Again, the Man United fixture is looking a lot better than the Palace fixture for Isak. So that is something to keep in mind. But I'm going to be honest, I think if these stats were a lot closer, you know, the return chances, the goal odds were a lot closer between them both, I would be heavily considering, you know, a Mateta captaincy here, because I think the minutes and stuff and the little things that do make a difference are favouring Mateta this week. But I can't ignore what is in front of us with the stats, and it's the highest expected points on both of our websites, the highest return chance, the joint highest goal odds, of course, as well with Mohamed Salah, and having that extra game week. I think the fact that both matches are at home for Newcastle is going to make a huge difference, and of course it does take the penalties for Newcastle as well. So I'm going to go for Alexander Isak, but I do still really like Mateta as an option. I wouldn't rule him out, and I think if you are on the fence with both, that is just kind of what you've got to consider. Isak has the goal odds, he's got the return chance, you know, he's got the figures there, but Mateta has, you know, probably the minutes, he's got, you know, the extra day's rest, the chances are very similar between them both, so it's very close. I think as a captaincy pick, personally, I think Isak is going to be the one to go for. He's been very consistent throughout the whole season as well, you know, a lot better than Mateta has, and that is why we are picking him for game week 32. Gonna hopefully get some redemption from last week, his last week's blank, but that is now our 3rd week in a row of captaining Alexander Isak. So let me know in the comments if you agree or not. Are you going to pick Isak? Are you going to go for Mateta? Or are you going to go rogue and go for someone like Mohamed Salah? Make sure to leave a like on the video if you did enjoy. My team selection will be out tomorrow, and I'll see you all in the next one.